Hello and welcome to Paths to Independence, Making Informed Choices. My name is Nicole Rengifo. I'm the Project Connect Coordinator here at Adapt Community Network. Before we start, just a few quick housekeeping notes. If you have questions for our presenters, please use the Q&A feature. Just click on the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and type in your question and hit send. The chat box will only be used for sharing helpful links and information about Adapt Community Network's webinar, including how to access translation, which you'll find posted there soon. Please keep your questions general, since today's session is meant to be shared overall information and not address personal situations. Just a quick reminder, please don't include any personal details in your questions. If your connection drops during the session, please don't worry. Simply just use the same link provided to you in your invitation and rejoin. We understand that technical issues could arise, and if you miss any content, kindly visit our website after the summit. You can visit us at www.adaptcommunitynetwork.org and be sure to follow us on social media at Adapt We Change. We truly appreciate your patience and continued participation. It is my pleasure to welcome you today to today's session, to Dorothy Next, MSW, and Evelise Saraga to this session. Dorothy is a champion of disability rights. Dorothy is a strong advocate for her 15-year-old son, Asher, who has quadriplegic cerebral palsy, seizure disorder, and intellectual developmental disabilities. More recently, Dorothy had taken up the challenge of being her own self-advocate when she lost her vision at age 45. Dorothy went back to school and earned her master's degree in social work with a concentration in disability studies in 2023. She is available to guide interaction workshops in a wide variety of disability topics through the Person-Centered Care Services, where she now works as a disabilities trainer. Evelise Saraga is a dedicated professional with over 13 years of experience supporting individuals with intellectual disabilities, IDD, of Latin descent, and is grounded in a strong academic foundation in psychology and disability studies. Evangelise has built her career throughout advancing equity, inclusion, and self-advocacy within the IDD community. For the past 7 years, she served in key roles at the Person-Centered Care Services. More recent, as an outreach engagement specialist, where she champions person-centered practices and empowers individuals to become an active participant in their own lives. Evangelise is deeply committed to systems change, disability justice, and fostering environments that honor dignity, autonomy, and meaningful choice of all. Please join me in welcoming our speakers.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Evelise. I'm the Outreach and Engagement Specialist at Person-Centered Care Services. And while I get the screen up, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Dorothy. Oh, I'm sorry, Dee, you're muted.
Okay, sorry about that. My name is Dorothy Nesk, or as everybody knows me, Dee. I want to thank the summit coordinators for giving us such a great opportunity to speak to you, and also to giving us such a wonderful introduction. I want to reiterate that I am a mother to a 15-year-old child who has quadriplegic cerebral palsy, a seizure disorder, severe intellectual developmental disability. He does not communicate with language. He does use a wheelchair. And so I'm in the thick of it. Anything disability related is very important to me. And I also lost my vision. I'd say it was about 7 or 8 years ago now. due to a cardiac arrest that gave me an acquired brain injury. So I know intimately how to advocate for myself and for my son, and also how to make informed decisions. And I just want to help you all understand how you can help your loved ones in providing this information to you today. So, Evelise, go ahead and reintroduce yourself.
Hi again. I'm Evelise. Before we get into the topic, I just want to share our mission and vision, our core values, and our strategy and impact here at Person-Centered Care Services. So our mission at Person-Centered Care Services, that we are a nonprofit organization creating social change within communities by supporting people with disabilities on their search for identity and acceptance. Our vision is to reconfigure humankind to be genuine and authentic human beings, disabled and non-disabled, creating a society of belonging and helping one another to live a good life. Our strategy and impact, our strategy to help a person build comprehensive supports that will engage and propel them to lead the life they want to live. Our impact, providing support to the Staten Island community and the greater New York City area to help create and facilitate relationships, resulting in a more diverse community while providing services to people with disabilities to engage and be a part of their communities. Our core values: support. Our responsibility as human beings is to support ourselves and one another. Equity. To participate in community is to have active citizenship. To be a participating citizen, one must have opportunities which are equitable, which accommodate the differences all human beings have. And lastly, acceptance. One of the most vital components of having a quality of life is love. It's okay to tell someone you love them, and more importantly, it's okay to show them. To accept another for who they are and what makes them human can be a most validating experience. It is self-empowering. Now we're going to get to our session objectives for today. So the first one we have is participants will be able to identify personal choices they can make each day to support their independence. The second one, participants will be able to decide, explore how to decide, act, and empower self-advocates to make informed decisions based on a person-centered approach. And you're going to hear me say that quite often during this training. 3, participants will gain the skills to ask informed questions and gather information when making informed decisions. And lastly, participants will learn the difference between choice and risk when it comes to making informed decisions. Before we get into informed decision making, I wanted to go over what person-centered planning is. You're going to hear me say this a lot, and this topic is really centered around person-centered planning. So just to start, person-centered planning focuses on an individual's goals, preferences, and values. In the person-centered planning process, we see the individual as the expert of their own life, having full control of what supports are put in place. It focuses on supporting a person, straying away from doing for, and instead doing with. Person-centered supports place the individual at the heart of all decision-making. This means recognizing and respecting each person's unique goals, abilities, and preferences, creating supports that are tailored to their needs that promote dignity, independence, and meaningful participation in the community. What is the role of self-direction? Self-direction means that people lead their own lives and support. It allows individuals to make choices about their supports, their schedules, their services, just like anyone else. It recognizes that everyone has unique goals, preferences, and ways that they want to live. The focus shifts from what services do we have to what does the person want to do and what supports will help them get there. Self-direction empowers people to take ownership of their choices. Independence doesn't mean doing everything alone. It means having the freedom to make decisions and direct one's own supports. Accountability is built in. Participants manage budgets, staff, planning, with support as needed. Control gives people the ability to decide who provides their supports, when, and how. The provider's role is to walk alongside the person, not in front of them. Staff and agencies act as resources and advisors, helping individuals navigate options, but not making the choices for them. Collaboration replaces authority, and decisions are made with the person, not for the person. This approach builds trust, respect, and person-centered outcomes. I wanted to
Emily,
share, oh, yeah.
I'm sorry. I just want to jump in and say something about self-direction. So my son has self-direction, and it is a wonderful program that is relatively new that does allow our family to hire those people that are most likely to get along with our son well, to work with him well, who are interested in him and are able to support him best. But I think it was said earlier in the day that self-direction comes with a downside, which is that it's up to it becomes kind of a full-time job for the family to hire, fire, and train those people that are coming through the household, which can be an added burden to the family. So if families want self-direction, it's a wonderful thing, but they shouldn't be forced into self-direction, because it is kind of overwhelming for some families to handle those responsibilities. So while I think self-direction is fantastic, I don't think it's for everyone. That being said, I have it, I use it, and I would encourage anybody else to sign up for it if they thought it would work well for their family. So I just wanted to throw that out there as being a user of self-direction. I know intimately how it works and what some of the pitfalls can be.
Thank you so much, Dee, for that. And yeah, it all ties back to making informed decisions. But yeah, we do encourage people, if they can do self-direction, that they can do so. It gives the individual and the family more autonomy over their services and who provides it, and who's going into and out of the home and the direct support professional that's actually there. But of course, it's a lot of work. And if you don't have the time set aside, or if it might be overwhelming because you are in charge of everything that has to do with that person and their circle of support and what services that they make, then people usually do choose traditional services. So thank you, Dee, for mentioning that. Just to continue, I wanted to bring up the NADSP Code of Ethics and Informed Decision Making. So NADSP stands for the National Alliance for Direct Support Professionals. Direct support professionals are people that work either one-on-one or in a group setting with the person supported to work on goals in a services setting. So under the DSP Code of Ethics, they have to respect the individual's rights to make choices even when they disagree. This is the hardest part, especially since we all have morals, right? And especially if the choice or the decision that's being made is a really intense one, or it's something that might have a really big consequence, or something that has a big risk and leads to a lot of change. It's really hard as either a service provider or a family member or a direct support professional to remove our morals out of that. But under the NADSP Code of Ethics, it's really important to educate and give factual information, rather than putting our morals into it. Support professionals and families support people in understanding consequences and risk. That's a big one. So making sure that we're laying out all of the consequences, all of the risks, and risks aren't necessarily negative, but providing that to the person supported so that they can make their own decision. And with this, it honors privacy, dignity, and autonomy. and some actual points of the code of ethics that I did want to mention. So for autonomy, that means supporting the person with the disability to make their own informed choices and direct their own lives. This is going to seem very repetitive, but it's really important to have person-centered planning at the core of everything that we do, and we're making sure that the person supported is involved in all of those decisions. Direct support professionals honor each person's right to self-determination by providing information, guidance, and support, never control. The goal is to empower individuals to make their own decisions that reflect their own values and preferences. Justice involves promoting fairness, equity, and inclusion for all people. It means advocating for equal access to opportunities, resources, and community participation, while actively challenging discrimination or any systemic barriers that limit full citizenship for people with disabilities. And lastly, I wanted to touch upon integrity. Integrity requires acting with honesty, transparency, and consistency in all professional responsibilities. Direct support professionals must uphold ethical standards, maintain trust, and ensure that their actions align with the values and respect of the person that they support. And Dee, I see that you you wanted to jump in there, so I'm gonna let you.
Sorry, Evelise. I just wanted to give a real life scenario to what we were talking about with supporting decision making and not putting our own moral values onto someone. And Evelise knows this very well. She and I together, we teach a sexuality course to people with intellectual developmental disabilities. We teach it to them directly, also to their families and caregivers. And whether we like it or not, at the age of 18, children become adults and they have that capacity to make the decision of whether they want to go forward with certain relationships. And everybody has a moral code that they want to impart to the person that they're taking care of. But the fact is that they're 18, they can make their own decisions, they're adults, they can do what they want. And so here comes the part where we give them all the information that they need to make a good decision, the decision that's right for them. And you have to give them the options that they have versus the risks of what could possibly happen when they make a decision. And then you pretty much have to just let them go and see what happens, and then come back and find out how they used their decision-making powers and how they could refine it in the future to make maybe a different decision or to double down on the decision that they made. So what Evelise is talking about with our moral codes and are helping them to um, make their own decisions that are important for them have very real world consequences. And I just wanted to throw that out. And I know, Evelise, we've worked on this together. So if you have anything to add to that, I'd love to hear you talk about it.
Yeah, thanks, Dee. Yeah, a lot of the trainings that we provide to the people that we support are all information based, and especially with a heavy topic like sexuality and people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, when we are having those workshops with the people that we support or the families, that's a really hard, it's really difficult to remove your morals, and it's really difficult to want to steer the person you're supporting or your family member in the right direction, even if you have experience in certain areas. So I do also want to say, even though we are pulling out our morals, you can share stories if you would like to when it comes to decision making. An example of that would be, hey, when I made this decision and I said that I was going to do A, B, and C, this is what happened to me. That doesn't mean that this is going to happen to you, but this is a possible risk of that. Um, but yeah, we do also it's hard pulling out, our moral compass with these things. But Dee, thank you for sharing the sexuality training, because that is a big topic that's hard to be supportive and informed decision making while also kind of letting the person be a person and, kind of choose that, whatever the direction that is. And that is a pretty good segue to what is informed decision making. So I know we mentioned it a couple of times, but it is knowing all available options. So the options could be good options, bad options. It's just all of the options that a person has. It's understanding possible risks and benefits. It could be making a pro and cons chart. It could be balancing what will happen if I do this. What are some good things that are happen? What are some not so good things that'll happen? Having the support to weigh out those choices is super important. It doesn't have to be, someone in the immediate family. It can be a direct support professional. It could be someone that is in their circle of support that they're really close to, that they have a lot of trust with. It could be a peer. Just having that person to support them in weighing those choices is pretty important. And then making the final decision with confidence and understanding. So while we're providing that information while doing informed decision making, we're making sure that the final decision is coming from that person and that they're confident they went over all of the scenarios that could possibly happen. And with all of that information, this is exactly what that person wants. And building independence through daily choices can start small. So it could start with everyday decisions, big and small. An example of some daily choices are what to wear, what to eat, when to take a break, who to spend time with. And each person builds confidence and self-determination. Professionals or parents can support by encouraging and not directing. And I really like this aspect of it because as someone who is neurotypical, you're making choices all of the time, and they might be something that no one might question you for them, or you kind of just do it. I wake up in the morning and I know exactly what outfit I want to wear, or maybe I don't know what outfit I want to wear, and I kind of go through that process, to figure out what the end goal is, what am I wearing. And it's really important for parents and providers to start building that independence with everyday decisions as young as you can. Just kind of building up, and it doesn't have to be something that's a life or death decision, but something like what's here on the screen could be a really good starting point to starting your child with informed decision making. Coming to conclusions might require some more time. So it might require the person to sit and process all of those options, and it might take them a little bit more time. But it's really important to be patient and allow for that time to happen. Um, as decisions become more entailed, it's also important to remove our own morals, as I said before, with someone making a choice. These are just some quick tips for self-advocates and knowing your rights. The first one is you have the right to make your own decisions. You can ask questions until you understand. It could be 5 questions, it could be 10 questions. It doesn't matter how many questions you need to get to your end goal. It is okay to change your mind. And that's really important too. I feel like when we're supporting people, there's a lot of pressure to kind of make a quote unquote good decision for that person. But it is okay to change your mind. And you can ask for support and not permission. And now for this next slide, I'm going to pass it over to Dee.
Okay, everyone. I just want to remind everyone that I am blind, so take the ride with me. I might hesitate a little bit on some slides because I'm not actually reading them. I'm listening to them in my ear, just so you have some idea of how things are going for me. So I'm going to start with, you know, to make a good informed decision, oftentimes you have to start with your legal rights. And for those with disabilities, their legal rights start with the Americans with Disabilities Act, which was passed in 1990. The Americans with Disabilities Act, or as we call it, the ADA, was enacted in July of 1990. And it guarantees full participation in society for all people with a disability, which is defined as an impairment that substantially limits one or more life activity. So that's the legal definition of what a disability is according to the ADA. Now there are different titles to the ADA that are covered. So those with disabilities are quote unquote not discriminated against, but I will talk more about that as we go on. So the 5 titles focus on employment, telecommunications, public accommodations, state and local government, and transportation. And then concurrent to the ADA is another law, which has been mentioned before, IDEA, the Individualized Disabilities Education Act, which is concurrent to ADA, not part of it, but I need to talk about that as well. So being someone who has, I have intimate knowledge of disability, right? It's in my family, it's in my immediate self, it's in my son, and not just any disability, but some pretty extreme disability. So I tend to have some pros and cons to every disability right that I hear about, which I'm going to go through the different acts right now. I'm going to talk about what they afford us legally, which will help us inform our decision making. So the first is employment. So you cannot be treated badly because you have a disability. Also, it says in the ADA that you cannot be paid less. However, I have a caveat to that. There are certain circumstances where some people can be paid less based on their disability, the severity of their disability, which just goes to show that, you know, the ADA may be great on paper, but in actuality, we need to push for more equity and bringing the laws from 1990, which was quite a long time ago. I actually graduated from high school in 1990. I am now in my 50s. You know, these laws should be updated and we should be pushing for the updates to be more inclusive. So in employment, they can't give you a worse job because of your disability. They can't segregate you from those of your peers who are not disabled. They can't have rules that discriminate against you or against your family because of your disability. They have to have accessible applications so that it's easy for those with disabilities to apply for a particular job. And they must give you reasonable accommodations to be able to help you perform your job duties. Now, this is another area where I think we can do better. Reasonable is up to the person, right? It's what would a reasonable person think? And this has no legal definition. It's nebulous at best. And so there are times when companies can argue that the reasonableness of the request is outside their parameters of what they can offer. I think we can do better, and I think that we should continue to push for laws that give more equity in the employment arena. As was said earlier, more and more people are living longer lives due to better medical interventions. And what are those people doing with their lives? What kind of quality of life do they have? What are Are they working? And if they are working, are they being treated fairly? Are they being compensated fairly? Or are companies taking advantage of the fact that there are still some antiquated laws on the books that allow them to take advantage of certain people? Um, so telecommunications is the next one. So this is pretty easy. People with disabilities should be able to access television, movies, telephones, those types of things. For example, when I go to the movies, I have to have a screen reader that explains what's happening on the screen because I can't see the movie. Now, this is a law that it should be provided to me. I can't tell you how many times I go to the movie theater and they don't have one that's working, or the the screen where the movie is being shown isn't properly set up for that. You know, this is a problem, and we really shouldn't tolerate it, but it's tolerated every single day because what are you going to do? So this is another area where I think, this is a right that is afforded to those with disabilities, and we should take it seriously. And as an ally to those with disabilities, we should be pushing for more for the ability for those with disabilities to be able to be within our communities more. So public accommodation just basically means that those with disabilities should be able to go where everyone else can go. Um, and, we in the biz, we call that what universal design, where we should be designing spaces for accessibility, not just for those with disabilities, but for everyone. For example, we think that curb cuts are basically only for those with a wheelchair. However, um, when we think more fully about this, we can tell that curb cuts are great for those who are in a wheelchair, for those who have a cast on their leg, for mothers with babies in prams, for the elderly who are walking with a cane. So this is generally what we call universal design, which includes everyone, not just those with disabilities, but it is something that we should be keeping an eye on and pushing for in our communities. I'm sure you all know that um, any building that was built before 1992 is grandfathered out of the accessibility laws, and they are allowed to not have accessible doorways to people with disabilities. I have gone to court before, taken my son to an IEP meeting at the courthouse because we were in litigation over his IEP. And there was no way to get into the building. It was all stairs. And in order to get him in his wheelchair into the building, we had to use a dirty freight elevator that was around the corner where no one else could see him. And it was almost like he was a dirty little secret in getting into the building. It's, not acceptable. And again, this is a right that those with disabilities have to be able to get into buildings, to be able to participate in local and state governments. And it's something that we should be more cognizant of and pushing for greater access to. Again, I just want to say with state and local governments, we need more representation in state and local government of those with disabilities. We tend to shy away from situations where we don't see ourselves reflected. So state and local government, there aren't a lot of leadership that have disabilities, whether visible or invisible, that are willing to talk about them openly. And so without that representation, people with disabilities are less likely to want to go into state and local government. But the more that we can open that up and have people with disabilities represented, the more the younger generations will see um, uh, themselves reflected in leadership and want to take up that mantle as time goes on. So I also think that that's important to mention. Transportation is another big one. You know, people with disabilities have the right to be able to get around on public transportation. However, as you all know, if you have a loved one in a wheelchair, the ramps on the trains are only every, 5 or 6 or 7 stops. And this is why Access-a-Ride exists, but anyone who has used Access-a-Ride knows that it's a perfectly imperfect system. And completely aggravating for those of us who use it regularly. It's great on paper, but doesn't actually work in reality sometimes. It is frustrating to those of us with disabilities to basically be told that our time is not valuable and that going all over the place trying to, sharing an Access-a-Ride, being hauled to 3 different drop-offs before you are dropped off, or having to find a way to an accessible train station when you live, 2 miles away from one. These are issues that no one seems to care about, but those with disabilities. And again, as an ally to people with disabilities, I would encourage everyone to be cognizant of these things as you walk through the world. And if you see something that you think is not fair, definitely say something about it, because things aren't going to change if we don't stand up for ourselves and know what our rights are and be able to ask for the things that we need. Now, the last one that I'm going to talk about, IDEA, again, is not part of the ADA, but is concurrent to it. The Individualized with Disabilities Education Act. We've heard about the IEP process earlier today. The IEP, the Individualized Education Plan, it is a legal document, but I will say that it is contingent on what the school system is capable of providing to the child. For example, my son, who is a very medically complex child, receives much more therapy on his IEP than a traditional Department of Education school could possibly provide to him. And so although his IEP outlines it, I know that our local school cannot supply the what is being mandated to him. So we had to look around and find a particular school that would be able to supply that to him. So again, IDEA, the IEP, these are all wonderful things advancing the rights of those with disabilities. They all have small issues here and there that we need to be cognizant of, and we need to constantly be checking ourselves and asking ourselves, is this still working? Is this still appropriate to the population that it's meant to serve? And those with disabilities need to know what these rights of theirs are, and they have to be asking themselves, is this appropriate to me? Am I able to use this in the way that it's meant to be used? And you want to always know what your rights are when you're making an informed decision, because what you don't want to have happen is have somebody say, well, that's a nice goal of yours, but that's never going to happen because you don't actually have the right under the law to be able to access what you're looking for. So it's the place that we want to start is, what are our legal rights? So Next, we get into self-advocacy, which I know we talked about this morning. I'm going to talk about it more uh, for older children and young adults than for younger children. Self-advocacy and informed decision-making kind of go hand in hand. So making an informed decision and self-advocacy. So self-advocacy is when you know your strengths and weaknesses and you know what you need to succeed. So that's this self-awareness. This is asking yourself, you know, what's important to me? What do I need? Where am I going? What goals do I have for myself? And then you need to be able to communicate that to other people. This is basically the outline of what self-advocacy is. So people who can make informed decisions and can self-advocate are more likely to thrive in school, work, and life because they can make requests and they have a reasoned way of looking at the request or a reasoned way of asking for the request that helps put them in a better position to get what they're looking for. So informed decision making and self-advocacy can enhance your independence and can boost your confidence and your resilience. And it can help empower you to solve problems, and it can help you build resiliency. So, you know, being able to say what you need and develop a reasoned way of asking for it can set you up for a lifetime of achievement. If you never learn those skills, it would be very difficult for you to go out and be able to make an informed decision, knowing what, or even knowing what goals you have for yourself. So we're going to talk about the Decide, Act, and Empower framework now. This is basically a framework that is supposed to help with anxiety. So I spoke to college freshmen about a month and a half ago or so about self-advocacy and supported decision making. And their anxiety about standing up for themselves was through the roof. And some of them couldn't even talk about it. They were couldn't even talk about what they were trying to achieve because they were so anxious about the outcome or what might happen when they decided to ask for what they needed. So this framework is designed to help ease that anxiety and break things up into small, achievable chunks of information. And it's a way to help kids break things up into small achievable steps, which is I think what everybody needs to be able to move forward. Really, a lot of the things that we talk about today, they're great for those with disabilities, myself included and my son included. But a lot of these skills are just skills that everybody should have and can use. And if you are working with a person supported, if they're in your family or in your classroom or someone that you work with as a case manager or as a direct support professional, all of these tips are for you too. So just keep that in mind. So step one, you want to explore options together. Like, what are my options? What is the goal that I'm trying to achieve? And what are the options that I have to get there, right? There are all kinds of options. Sometimes you might come up with one or two. Sometimes there's 10, sometimes you'll come up with one or two and then think about it for a few hours and then come up with another few. But it's important to try and brainstorm all the different options that you might have. And while you're doing this, you're trying to identify what matters most to the person supported, because this is person supported, right? This is person-centered planning. And it's not about what we want. It's not about what I want for my son. It's not about what you might want for your loved one or the person that you're caring for. It's about what do they want. And so it's important to be asking that question all the time. What is it that they're trying to, what goal do they have? What are the options and what's important to them? Why are they working for this? And then you want to take small supported steps toward that goal. So you want to break it down into digestible chunks and continually just take small steps forward and work toward it. And then, the whole time that you're taking these small steps, you want to offer tools and accessible information continuously so that at every step of the way, they can reevaluate where they are and where they're going and how things are moving for them. And then step 3 is empower. And you want to reflect on what worked and what didn't work, and then celebrate the effort that was put into this process. Because the more you celebrate their achievements, the more you're going to encourage ongoing choice making, which is, at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. Encouraging them to make the choices that are going to make them happy. Make the choices with informed options, weighing risks and benefits that will get them to a solution that they're happy with.
Sorry, Dee, I just want to jump in here.
Sure.
Just as a reminder too, as someone who is supporting someone with a disability or a family member or a direct support professional or provider, there might be times where you run into maybe a person supported that has a dream or a goal that's really may seem unattainable. An example of that is we had a person supported who loved the WNBA. She wanted to be a professional basketball player. Everyone was almost trying to, talk her down from that dream and that goal, and was like, oh, the chances are very slim that you would actually become a WNBA player, and, statements like that. And using this framework, we were able to break down that goal into something attainable. So something that, at face value sounds, maybe sounds ridiculous to you. We kind of broke it down to, okay, you want to be a WNBA player? Do you know how to play basketball? Do you know the rules of basketball? And she was able to make the decisions of what her goals were going to be, starting very small. So going from learning how to play basketball to getting to the WNBA, starting there, but still giving her the autonomy to, not say, hey, you can't do that, or you're not able to have that goal in your mind. We gave her all of the information needed to make a decision. Well, okay, if that's your goal, then let's start small. Let's start with learning the rules of basketball, watching a game on TV, or going to the local park and playing with other peers in the community. So even if someone, when they're making a decision, their decision or their goal might seem unattainable, I really encourage you to sit and really take the time to break up the goal into things that are more attainable. And that also gives that person confidence too when they're reaching those smaller goals, rather than, kind of telling them that it's unrealistic or unattainable, and then reflecting on the outcome. So this person realized she's not really that great at basketball. And that kind of switched her decision making to, maybe I'll do something else instead. So we gave that person the autonomy to try, and supported her through that process. And then when she was ready to kind of pull out and change gears, that's what she did. And it was her final decision on her own terms. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Sorry, Dee.
No, that's great. Thank you for that story. That was really great. Um, so we're going to look at how to make informed choices now. So when you're deciding a choice, you want to ask, what are all my options? So again, options could be few or could be many. And you might leave out one or two. You'll figure it out as you go along. If you leave out an option that you don't think about, eventually it will come up and you can add it to the options list. So you want to think, what are the good things and the not so great things that could possibly happen with each option? You know, um, um, if you make a choice, what is the possible outcome? What could happen if I choose one way versus the other way? And then you want to ask yourself, do you have all the information that I need to make this choice? You know, um, am I missing some pieces of information that could possibly hinder my choice making? And if I am, who can I go to that can fill in that information for me? Would be a good choice for me to bounce ideas off of, or have uh, might either be professionally or a part of the community, someone who's well respected in this particular area of what I'm trying to attain, that I could go to and ask them, like, I'm trying to make this decision, but I'm not sure that I have everything that I need to make the appropriate decision. So a tip for professionals and families, if you are helping someone work through an informed decision, and you are working with them on their options and their risks and their benefits, you might want to ask them open-ended questions about why it's important that they attain this particular goal, or why it's important that this issue, what is the issue and why is it important to this particular person, instead of just asking them like yes, no questions that they might just be giving you the answer that they think that you might want, as opposed to giving you the answer that will help you develop a better idea of exactly what it is that they're trying to attain, and then helping them with that. So we have tips on making informed decisions. You want to make sure that you give yourself enough time to go over all the pros and cons, but don't take too much time, because the parameters of your question are going to change at some point, and then you're just going to be spinning your wheels and you're never going to be able to make a decision, because the question is constantly going to be changing for you. Whenever possible, you want to talk to other people about your decision making, because getting feedback and advice is an important part of making sure that you're making the right decision for you, not for someone else. You want to make sure that you're talking to someone who knows you, who can be a sounding board for the options that you're looking at. So part of this informed decision-making process is understanding choice and risk. Choice is making a decision based on what matters to you. It reflects your preferences and your goals and your autonomy. So, when you make a decision, you're basically making a choice, right? And this choice it's your choice. It's not somebody else's choice. I know I keep saying that, but it's so important as caregivers and family members that we're not pushing our agenda on to the person supported, right? We want to make sure that this is what they want because this is person-centered. This is about them having autonomy to be able to make the decisions that they want to make for themselves. But they also have to know what the risks are for any of the options that they come up with, right? Every option comes with a risk. So risk is the possibility that something negative might happen, but not all risks are bad because they can lead to learning opportunities. And this is an important part of, I think, maturing and growing up is understanding that, as they say, nothing ventured, nothing gained. You know, sometimes you have to take a risk in order to grow. And if we impart to our loved ones that they're doing okay just the way they are, and, you know, not stretching or giving themselves a goal to attain is okay. You know, you don't have to, you don't have to put yourself out there. Are we doing that because it's what is best for them, or are we doing that because it's what's best for us? And it's very difficult, as Evelise was saying earlier, it's very difficult to remove ourselves from this process while still maintaining helpfulness to the person supported in this process. So supporting informed decision-making balances dignity of risk with safety. So it's a balance of both of these things. So on your screen, I'm going to call your attention to the Venn diagram that's on the right-hand side. And it's a Venn diagram that basically has choice and risk in a circle. And in the overlapping circle, this is where informed decision making lies. So when we are making an informed decision, or when we are helping someone to make an informed decision, we always have to be balancing that choice versus the risk that could be involved. So now we're going to talk about role play, which I think is so very important when it comes to self-advocacy and informed decision making. So why does role play matter in something like this? It can provide a safe and supportive environment to explore real life scenarios, right? If I sit down and role play a particularly difficult discussion that I want to have with someone, I am supported with the person that I'm speaking to, and I can more freely develop my arguments rather than having it doing it on the spot can sometimes cause people to freeze up. It's very anxiety ridden. It's difficult to get your thoughts in line. So role playing is an important part of doing it in a safe manner. It can help someone practice their decision making before coming across real life consequences rather. So for every decision we make, there's a consequence. And if we role play what scenarios could possibly happen, you know, we can, you know, mitigate the consequences, the bad consequences that might come out of that. And we can look at it and say, well, this kind of, if we go this way, it kind of helped us develop an argument that was better accepted. If we go this way, the consequences, you know, it wasn't as well received. So it's a way to be able to work out that argument without the real world consequences that will happen later on. It can also encourage critical thinking about the risk and benefits and the alternatives of what we're looking at. So one part of role play that is very important, as I've said before, is difficult encounters can scare anyone. And role playing can help you calm yourself before that scenario um, uh, comes to fruition. Role playing with your parents or your mentor or someone who's meaningful to you that you feel safe with is the best way to go. And building the language and the vocabulary needed to make these requests is also very, very important. There are many people who have these scenarios happen upon them every single day, and they don't have the vocabulary needed to be able to say definitively, this is the choice that I want to make. They don't have that vocabulary to talk about it. And in role playing, you can provide them with the vocabulary that they need. And it in turn, it can, having that vocabulary can help them, stand up for themselves. That's, making choices, having informed decisions, having self-advocacy. It all amounts to basically being able to stand up for yourself, to say what you need, when you need it, and to be able to make a reasoned request that will help you to attain the goals that you're looking at. So now Evelise and I pulled out a couple of case scenarios for you to give you a better better access to exactly what we are talking about. These case scenarios, the first one is about Maria, who is she's a 27-year-old woman with an intellectual developmental disability who lives at home with her parents. She is active in her community and she works a part-time job, but she wants more independence and she wants to live on her own. She wants to have her own apartment. So her parents are worried about her safety, her money management, and loneliness. And the core question that we are going to present here is, how can Maria's family, her support team, and she herself work toward this goal? And while at the same time balancing choice and safety. So first, we need to explore the choices that Maria might have in attaining her own apartment. And on the screen here, you're going to see a chart that's going to help Maria's family and her circle of support mitigate any issues any risks that might happen, that they might think about for her having her own apartment. So the first choice that she had was, living on her own. The risk is forgetting to lock the doors. The support that we can put in place to manage that risk is installing, locks that self-lock when the door is closed. Choice two is managing her money. And the risk could be overspending or not being able to pay her bills on time. And the supports that we can put in place to manage that risk is a budgeting app or weekly check-ins with her family or her caregiver to see where she is with her budget and her bills. Choice three would be cooking meals in her new apartment by herself. The possible risk would be burns or spoiled food. And the supports to manage that risk could possibly be visual recipes, safety training, or teaching her how to use the microwave for most things. And choice four is social independence. And the possible risk to that would be feeling lonely. And the support to manage that risk would be weekly family visits or participation in community events. It's already been said that Maria is active in her community, but in order to stave off loneliness, we want to make sure that she's taking advantage of all the groups that are available to her.
I'm
So
so sorry for the interruption. We have like 3 minutes before we're gonna start taking questions. So everyone, please start submitting your questions through the Q&A.
okay, I'll wrap it up real quick. So the key takeaway here is that informed decisions don't remove all risk. They help manage it through planning and support. So the family collaboration and outcome. So the family supported Maria in this particular scenario by having a meeting with her support team, discussing what matters most to Maria, identified the risks, the potential risks, and then talked about what could mitigate those risks. And then they developed a supported decision-making agreement. And we're going to show this on the screen real quick. This is just an example of an agreement that helps supported decision-making. It's symbolic, can be signed by all parties, basically saying, this is what's important to you. These are the risks that we acknowledge. This is how we can mitigate those risks. And this is what everybody's responsibility is going to be in making this goal a reality.
Dee, if you want, we could skip the next case scenario and just go right.
Okay, Evelise, I'll turn it over to you now, and you can either go through the next scenario quickly or just finish up whatever you think is best.
Sure. So really quickly, the next scenario has to do with Jordan in the workplace. A quick summary of what this is that he's feeling stressed by bright lights and constant customer interaction. So there were two options for him. One was transferred to a quieter department with few customer interactions, and option two was to stay in his current role, but use sunglasses or take short breaks. If he chooses the option of moving his role, he might have to learn a new role from the beginning. If he uses sunglasses, customers might not understand and may react to him negatively, causing confusion, and other employees might express concerns with fairness or consistency in workplace policies. So there's also benefits to both options. Option one would be less sensory overload and the ability to focus. Option two was maintain familiar tasks and relationships, but still build self-advocacy by identifying the supports that need to help him to succeed. So really the basis of this was informed decision-making allowed Jordan to understand both the benefits and risk of his choices and making a decision that reflects his preferences. But just some ending remarks. Empowerment starts with us. Every person has their own right to make their own choices. Our role is to support and not steer those decisions. And when we promote informed decision making, we build trust, confidence, and true inclusion. And I like to end this by saying, "Nothing about us without us." That is a quote that we utilize a lot at PCCS as well, to make sure that there is nothing being done and there's no choice being made without the person supported. And that is
Thank you,
it.
Evelise.
Hi, thank you very much. I have some questions for you guys ready and prepared. So the first question is, through your presentation, you mentioned self-direction as well as traditional services. Can you elaborate quickly on what you would use this presentation for that? Those two different options for individuals?
Sure, I'll let Dee take that over since you do
Mhm.
self-direction. Go ahead, Dee.
Uh, I just want to make sure that I understand the question. You want to know why a family might choose one over the other?
Yes, you can one or the other, or what are the differences between one or the other?
Oh, okay, yeah. So, traditional supports would be supports that are put in place by someone else, based on what they think is best for the person supported, without any input from the person supported or their family. This happens, you see this happen a lot when children are starting out the process in early intervention. It might not be so sure like what the child needs, and so it's up to someone outside of the family to put supports in place. And if you choose to maintain a traditional avenue of supports, then that's the way it's going to stay. Someone is always going to be telling you what's best for your child, what they can do, what they can't do, uh, what therapies are best for them, what is the best school for them, it's all of that. Your personal choice is completely taken away. Self-direction is the complete opposite. Self-direction means that the family and the person supported have the right to say who, where, when, how, and why things happen to them or for them. Um, it says who comes into the house, who provides the support mechanisms, who the direct support personnel are, and what classes or therapies the child may want to utilize. So there's a high autonomy with self-direction that is so very important in making informed decisions, because self-direction actually gives you the right to make your own decision, where um, generally speaking, if you choose the more traditional route, that decision-making process is taken away from you. But as I was saying before, so it's not for everyone, and there should not be any shame in not wanting to choose self-direction, because it is a lot of work, and some families just don't have the bandwidth to be able to support their child with self-direction, and that's okay, you know,
Thank you, Dorothy.
whatever works
Unfortunately,
best
that
for
is
your family.
what the time that we have. We're gonna move forward uh to our next remarks. Thank you so much. I want to thank all the presenters who were able to present.